And I'm back with another long overdue episode of Let's Play Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. In the previous episode, we cleared out the clock tower, and now we're about to face the boss at the top of the clock tower. Before we go there, the soul setup that I'm going to use is the Lightning Doll soul for heavy damage, the Medusa head soul, which allows us to stop in mid-air to avoid some of his attacks, and then I'm going to switch over to the Headhunter soul just for additional damage output. So with that said, let's head over and defeat this boss. Now he has two forms, and if you played any Castlevania game, you know it's probably going to be death. Yep, it's death. The first form, the only weakness he has is his sickle. So I generally use the Lightning Doll soul and just take it out as quickly as possible while avoiding his little sickle attacks. And once that's destroyed, his body is vulnerable. Now, the main goal here is to avoid his attacks by dividing them up into two types. Either the type you can get below or the type you have to get above. So, for instance, this one you have to get above by double jumping and then using the Medusa head to float. Whereas other ones, you can duck under. So you just have to be quick on your feet. You'll be able to pick these patterns up quickly, though, once you try them a few times. And his defeat nets us the Death Soul, which allows us to attack enemies using sickles. I'll show you that soul quickly here. Basically, it creates homing sickles that seek enemies from a distance and attack them. It's pretty useful, but it's really expensive on your MP. And now we have the Skula soul, which allows us to walk while underwater. So we can finally swim. I'm going to go to the bottom of the clock tower and I'll meet you there. Okay, I'm back at the bottom of the clock tower where I said I was going to return to earlier in the previous walkthrough. And now with the Skula soul equipped, we can sink down through this water. And we come upon a new enemy, which is Needles. Oh! Got the soul, what do you know? This tosses mines into the air that explode at fixed intervals. Basically, it creates a floating landmine for the most part that explodes and the shrapnel does damage. But it's kind of hard to aim, so I don't ever use it. And it's pretty weak, as you saw too. I'll go back to my Lightning Doll soul. Oh, and they dropped a tasty meat. How lucky. There's another devil. We've already got his soul back in the floating garden level. So we'll continue exploring the basement of the clock tower now. This room is just a trap, so skip that. Now this room is very tricky. You have to just be careful of the spikes and make sure to duck or double jump over all of them and stick to one wall at all times so you don't run into them. You can do it without taking a hit if you're careful. Now at the bottom of this area we find the pitch black suit, and if I equip that, it's got a defense boost and an intelligence boost, so we'll go ahead and use that. Now getting back up this shaft can be really tricky because every one of these Medusa heads petrifies, and you can fall through the spikes when you're petrified, so be careful about that. And now we just have to head back up this corridor. It's a little trickier getting back up it than it was going down it, I think. Oh, see, that's what I mean. And off to the right here is another room. And now this one will actually look familiar if you've played... Oops, I'm going to switch over to my Medusa head soul so I can float over these spikes in case the pendulum swings past me. This area will look familiar to you if you've played Harmony of Dissonance. This actually is featured in the clock tower in that game as well. Kind of a little subtle nod to that game, which I liked. In fact, I may do a Let's Play of that next. And we got the Burnt Gang Sword. Getting back across these is tedious. If you fall on the spikes, it's about 70 hit point damage every time, so be careful there if you can. Oh, a Devil Soul, how lovely. Destroy some more needles, and we'll head over to the right now. I like those hourglasses that are filled with water. I have a feeling they empty pretty fast, though. I would much prefer my hourglass with sand. Thank you very much. Just continue going down and down and down. We're basically about to head out of the clock tower, just filling in map percentage at this point. Over to the right we have a teleport room, and then to the left we should be able to exit finally. There we go. And if we drop down from here, we'll be at the familiar castle corridor. I'm going to meet you back at the very beginning of the game now. Voila! We're over at the beginning corridor. And if you remember here, this is where we got our first ability soul much earlier in the game. Now we can finally head to the left, which I've been avoiding all this time, and that leads us to the underground reservoir. Now, a lot of these enemies we've already got souls from, thankfully. And we've netted ourselves a pendant, which is an accessory, but it's pretty lame at this point. You're supposed to get it much earlier in the game, but I don't like to go into these new areas if I can't go any farther. So I avoided it. More killer fish. Fish fillet, anyone? Now you can get up here by using the Undeed Soul when you're in the air. Now make sure to jump to the right, otherwise those guys will get you. They tricked me when I did my test run. And at the end of this corridor we have the Elfin Robe, which is a piece of armor that increases intelligence but decreases defense. I'm not going to use it. I prefer my defense. And another tasty meat. And let's switch to the Skula soul to sink down. And over here we have the Man-Eater, which is sort of like a sub-boss. It's got 3 eye tentacles. Whatever. I'm going to get his soul and I'll be back with that. Okay, we have the Man-Eater soul, which shoots a ripple laser. Basically, it creates the circular Metroid-esque ring that floats through the air, kind of like in the Turian, where Mother Brain is in Metroid. Anyway, I'm going to go back to Lightning Doll. Still my favorite soul at this point. And up top here we get a new sword, which is Rahab's sword, or Rahab's sword, I guess. And this is also dropped by the Man-Eater that we just destroyed, so you can get it either way, but I'm just going to grab it up there, it's much easier. Might as well just avoid him, he takes too long to kill. He does follow you though, so be careful that you don't trap yourself. We won't go down actually, I'm going to go to the right. We'll go down that corridor much later. And we come upon the dead Crusader. You can only hit him when he's trying to attack you. I'll be back with his soul. Alright, we have the Dead Crusader Soul, which increases Constitution by 16 points. It's actually the strongest Constitution boost soul you can get. And I also got his weapon drop, which is the S-Talk. And this is sort of like a rapier type weapon. I'll show you on the Dead Crusader again. I tend not to use it because it's pretty weak though. I still prefer the Mistletoe. Since it has the holy affinity, it does more damage to most of the monsters in this game. Okay, and now I have his other drop, which is a piece of armor that's very useful. It's the blocking mail. It increases defense, and it has a 10% chance of nullifying an attack completely. Anyway, I am going to call it a Let's Play here, and next time we'll continue exploring. See you then.